Hi. In this video, I'm back to talk about dialog boxes. So dialog boxes in ImageJ allow you to give users the option to input parameters for their analysis at the start of the experiment. So, for example, you could choose different filters, you could choose different thresholds, you could choose different sizes for filters or something like this. So in this video, I'm going to go through the dialog options and how they manifest and how you can control them and how you can pull information from these dialog boxes. So let's start by opening up a macro window and start with the creation of a dialog box. So when I start typing dial, I get a nice long list of the autocomplete function gives me a nice long list of the dialog functionality. So I'm going to start with dialog.create. This is going to initialize the dialog box. So I'm going to call this one user options. That needs to be the first line when you are creating a dialog box. You can have other code above it about like navigating to where your data is, setting the batch mode, true or false, whatever you want. But dialog.create is the first line of the dialog code. Then let's see about adding. We have a bunch of different things that we can add. So you can see we've got checkboxes, choices, help, messages, numbers, radio buttons, sliders, and strings. I'll be honest, I've literally never used add help, and that's probably because I don't document my code online. So I'm not going to talk about that. It's very rare that I use add message, but this is going to simply be a string that prints in your dialog box. So we'll say this, here's where you put your options. So then let's explore the next one. Adding a checkbox is this will allow the user to. The checkboxes are objects that evaluate as being true, checked, or false, unchecked. So this would be a good option if you wanted to include an extra round of analysis for a certain class of cell, or if you were giving the user an option to work with data that they'd analyzed before, if it was going to look for an ROI file or something like this. So I'm going to add a checkbox here. We're going to call this option 1 because I'm not an inventive person, and the default is going to be false for this. I'm gonna actually create a dialog box now, so you're not being shown 12 different constructions at the same time. So the last line that you add when you want to create your when you want to show your dialog box is dialog.show. So if I run this code now, you can see that I get a dialog box created with, it's titled user options, which is that string here. Here's where you put your options, is the message that I printed, and then I've got a checkbox here for option 1, which I can check or not. When I hit OK, it will evaluate the dialog, and we can then pull the options that have been selected from that dialog box. Okay, so now I'm going to start adding in some other components, so we're not just looking at this single checkbox. So choices, this is a drop-down menu. So this will allow you to select, let's say, different filters. So I'm going to see if I can find a threshold. So there's a command called getList threshold methods. I'm going to set this. I'm going to save this in a variable called threshlist, and I need to put that above my dialog code, because what I'm going to do for dialog.addChoice, I need to put in a label for this, which is always, the label is always going to be a string, and then I need to give the choice an array of options. And so in this case, it's going to be threshold. list. And you see autocomplete is offering me the user-defined variable thresh list, which is nice. We can also set a default option, so I'm going to set this as Huang, because I know that that's a nice threshold. It's not often a nice threshold, but it is a threshold that I know the name of instinctively. If I didn't include that third parameter, the default would just be whatever the first, here, I'll show. So because I've put in that third parameter, the default threshold that has been selected is Huang. If I didn't put that in, if I didn't put that third parameter in, the default would just be whichever the first value in the list is. And the default threshold is called default, which is not super helpful for my description here, but that is what it is. Okay, so we've done checkboxes, choices, messages, numbers, very straightforward. It's just a number. You're allowing the user to enter a number. So if you were doing something iteratively, you could say, how many times do you want to run this? And you would maybe, if you were going to do that, you would maybe suggest a list of options 1 to 10. You could set an if condition at the end, and maybe I'll do that to demonstrate the if condition once more. Let's see what else we've got waiting for us. Numbers, radio buttons. I don't really use radio buttons very much. These are... I don't use radio buttons a lot, I'll be honest. I can't think of an immediate option where I would want to use radio buttons. So I'm going to go with sliders. Sliders is similar to numbers. But instead of being represented as a dialog box in which you can input a number, you can input a number between certain values. So I'll set a number here. That's going to be the minimum value is going to be 1, the maximum value is going to be 50, and the default is going to be 25. And we're going to call that one subtract BG kernel. So this is going to be the size of the subtract background filter that we use. What else we got? We've got add sliders, add strings. So this one is useful for basically allowing people to enter, for example, a file name or a channel name or something like that. So okay, so I think that's all of the options covered, with the exception of radio buttons. But it's, by the time you think you will be needing radio buttons, you should be sufficiently good at programming that you can figure it out yourself. Yeah, that's all of the options that we have. So if I hit run, I've now got the option of a checkbox, choosing a threshold option, number. You can see I've got a slider here for the subtract background and the channel name backed in. How do I pull these numbers out of here? Or how do I pull these options out of here? To do that, you can see here we've got dialog.addMessage, add checkbox, add choice, add number. Underneath the dialog.show, we need to set a bunch of variables, and we're going to use getMessage, getCheckbox, getChoice. So these are evaluated in the order that these have been evaluated. I think technically if you had two different numbers and there was a slider in between those two numbers, if you said get number, get slider, you would get the correct values for these. But whenever I'm doing this code myself, I always just say, okay, I'm going to, because I've got message first, I'm going to get message. Because I've got checkbox, well, we're not going to get message because message doesn't return anything, but I'm going to get checkbox, then get choice, then get number, get slider, get string. So, so we're going to start with checkbox. So I need to create a variable. I'm going to call it option1. Get equals dialog.get checkbox. And that's going to return true or false. Choice, so we'll call it thresh used, because it's the threshold that's being used. Get choice. Number option, what could this possibly be? Iteration count equals dialog.getNumber. BG kernel equals get slider. Ooh. So it looks like get number is what you need for the get slider. I've never really used sliders either, but it looks like get number is what you use to pull slider values. So there we go. That's an important reason to just do these in order. And then finally, chan name, or we'll call it channel equals string. Dialog.getString, of course. And then I'm going to print out each of these. So option 1 is going to be true, the threshold is going to be the minimum error, the number is going to be 4, BG kernel is going to be 19, and the channel will leave as actin. And so there we get 1, minimum error, 4, 19, actin as our outputs here. And so you can put those outputs into your code later on. So if you want to do an analysis, an extra level of analysis or something like this, you can use the threshold for this. If you want to do an extra level of analysis, you can use the checkbox. Okay, that is dialogs. I think in the next video, I'm just going to talk a little bit about good practice, I think. And maybe I'll come up with an idea where I can do a larger scale analysis, and you can kind of see some choices that I make during an image analysis protocol to find out, to get an idea of how you might go about approaching certain problems. Okay. See you next time.